My project is titled Asclepius House, Becoming Other in the Everyday. Asclepius House is located in Macomer, Sardinia, and it is an infrastructure that serves the ritual of incubatio, which is the ritual of sleeping in a sacred location to find healing. As the title suggests, it deals also with everyday life, the economia, aiming to offer a new way of rethinking and reimagining the daily condition as an experience within a community. The infrastructure serves the most banal and simple programs of daily life activities, but in a landscape corridor that stretches for 1 kilometer and aims to host 30 visiting people, as well as welcoming tourists and the people from the Sardinian town. It is a system that deviates from the regular programs of the reproductive and flexible uses in the house, scaling them and adapting them to a complex topography. What moves the search for another kind of everyday in my project is the idea of ecstasis, becoming other, the misplacement from the proper place. The brief generated from the study of women who, during their anguished daily life, were granted a moment of ecstasis to escape from their conditions and become something new. The subjects in my research go for ecstasis as an orchestrated displacement, a contingent moment, but my design wants to offer ecstasis as a permanent and unbounded daily life experience. The first subjects investigated are the women of the Greek polis of 5th century before Christ. Their daily life was strictly related to the house, the ecos. Women had to take care of it and were not allowed to leave. The ecos was a form of confinement for the women, not only as an architecture, but also as a form of economy that enables a very specific way of living. In the ecos, as well as in the society, women were considered as non-entities. However, once a year, the Greek women became the Maenads, the mad women. They were involved in the cult of Dionysus, the Greek god of wine and intoxication, promoter of vitality and fertility. They were the main mediators of his cult. They got away from their typical daily life feminine role related to the house and engaged in a whole spectrum of forbidden behaviors. I also investigated in the south of Italy the mal di vivere, the pain of living. Here, the daily life of the women is a source of anguish due to the uncertainty of future prospects, the pressure, the frustrations, and is mirrored in the diffuse magical practices. Their anguish, which is mythically symbolized by the fact of being stung by a spider, is given a truce once a year for the practice of tarantism. The woman experiences a continuous sense of misery, enters a state of binding. She is possessed by a force that makes her rage in ecstatic movements. The ritual goes through a series of ecstatic passages involving symbolic objects and mediators, and ends with incubatio. The woman sleeps underneath the altar of the god and prays, waiting for healing. Throughout my research, incubatio happened to become one of the most powerful ecstatic means to overcome anguish and find a sense of healing. Incubatio was first practiced in Greece in the sanctuary of Asclepius in Epidaurus. It is a form of incubation, sleeping in a fetal position in a sacred location, non-stop for 5 days. The initiates would sleep on the benches located in the middle of the stoa, lying on the skin of the animal that was previously sacrificed. Sleep is seen as the ecstatic tool, and the enthusiasmos, the communion with God, is achieved by the apparition of the god in sleep and the subsequent healing. Incubatio was generated in Greece, but it had a big resonance in southern Italy as well, and is still practiced nowadays in many locations where medical martyrs are venerated. In more ancient times, around 2000 before Christ, incubatio, inherited from the Greek customs, was also usually practiced in Sardinia. The sleeping ritual was directly linked to the cult of the Sardus Pater, the father of the Sardinian lineage, to whom several sacred temples were devoted. They are the nurages, the sacred wells, and the necropolis. Nowadays, these ancient sites of incubatio are still a destination for rituals of self-healing, like in the case of the Dream Journey, organized by the Sardinian shaman Anna Montis. Every year she brings a group of Dutch women through the island. It's a road trip going through several locations, where the group would be visiting sacred neurologic sites while practicing different forms of shamanic rituals, as well as practicing the ritual of incubatio. As well as moments of individual deep connection with nature and the sacred. After documenting their experience and hearing personally from the shaman and the participants, I came to the conclusion that what is really singular in their journey is the new perspective into the shared daily life lived within a community. The dream journey, even the more banal sides of life, are impactful. The in-between shared moments become crucial. What's happening 80% of their time while they're not involved in the rituals. This represents a drastic difference from their usual daily lives. They are in search of a tangible stimulus that can take them away from the dryness of the soul that they experience in the Netherlands, also due to a lack of interpersonal relations. Back home, their daily lives are all based on jobs devoted to the care of other people, in hospice, hospitals, schools, but most of them have a second job, an ecstatic moment that helps them to get through. So in all the proposed subjects, ritual offer an escape from the anguish that is caused by the daily infertile life in fertile condition. This escape, however, happens in a contingent moment of their lives. It's either orchestrated by the police, like in the Greek example, or the religious customs, like in the Tarante, or it's a once-a-year shamanic journey, like for the Dutch women. It has an expiration date. My design wants to offer a 360 experience where the ecstatic rituals become part of the daily life, a way to redefine a special place, a model not only to escape, but to subvert, reimagine, and rethink the quotidian experience. Asclepius House aims to experiment with economia. Economia is the management of the house, as well as the economy of daily life activities. Subjects investigated, the house is seen as an architecture of confinement, which becomes an architecture of anguish, while the contingent rituals are seen as the escapes. My project wants to negotiate with the primary form of life lived in the house to experiment with a new form of living, by offering a set of architectures that provides ecstasis within daily life, which now becomes itself a ritual of economia. All this is backed up by a common goal, which is the incubatio at the two edges of the corridor. As economia and incubatio work together as a ritual of experimentation and healing for its users. The site I chose is Macomer. It's a small city in central Sardinia, counting 10,000 inhabitants. The name of the town means House of Asclepius, who is the god of incubatio, and this is reflected in its main key monuments, the nuraghe and the church. Nuraghe Santa Barbara is a famous site where incubatio would take place. The sacred building included a niche where the initiate would sleep for 5 days. The parish church, dating back to the 16th century, was devoted to San Pantaleo Martyr, patrons of doctors. He is one of the best examples of venerated martyrs for incubatio. Thus, the two edges of the city offer two examples of the ritual of incubatio that relate to two very different times and cults. This shows how incubatio has always been used as a way of living and is still very relevant. My design aims to offer an infrastructure that serves to connect these two locations for incubatio, a 1-kilometer corridor of daily life. The areas of the site are the one close to the nuraghe, the one in the deep valley in between the nuraghe and the city of Macomer, as well as the edge of the town. The overall design strategy aims to have different moments of more private, contemplative use and more shared living spaces, with a set of plugins for services. My additions are all carefully designed to adjust to the existing topography, as well as making use of the stone clusters on site to shape the design. To explain the several moments of design, I will go through a day in one of the many possible uses of the infrastructure. It's morning, and you and the other participants wake up in a nuraghe after an overnight collective incubatio. This is the view you would have from the nuraghe towards the town, where you can spot the stoa, which is the most prominent element of the design, and it's also the connecting axis from the nuraghe to the church. The staircase that runs through the landscape is inspired by the Greek stoa as the archetype of the public corridor, the portico where many sorts of public gatherings and political discussion could occur. I extracted it as an architectural typology because of its conformation of being open towards its sides, allowing for multiple possible arrangements of the adjoining programs. The linearity and specificity of this axis aims to counterbalance and give a sense of clarity to the form of daily life experimentation that happens around it. And it will also act, as it was happening in the Temple of Asclepius, as a space for incubatio. So you're walking along the stoa corridor and you decide to stop on one of the platforms to rest. Along the stoa, you will also find a set of services and toilets. As you continue walking along the stoa, you stop in the collective kitchen to prepare lunch with the other participants. Cooking time. The kitchen is designed as a reproductive space, taking as a reference the Sardinian frugal daily lifestyle, with a great influence of conviviality, and cooking is one of its key moments. The kitchen table is the life of the house, and cooking as a reproductive activity is never done by a person alone, usually done in the open air and in close contact to nature. It's lunchtime, and lunch is served on a structure embedded within the stone cluster. The inspiration here is the triclinium of the Roman domus. The triclinium, as it happens with the Greek angel, was conceived as a political space of man for decision-making and as a symbol of power. But in any other moment, these spaces were also appropriated by women as ways. It is a living structure that was used as a convivial and flexible space for both eating and resting. And because of its flexibility, the structure is repeating along the landscape, to be used in different ways accordingly to the surrounding context by both the users and the locals. Back to the kitchen, where it's time to clean the dishes all together. You continue the journey towards the town, and you can decide to step out of the soa and roam around, or stop at one of the bathing pots. You have walked out into the town, and you look back, you have an overview of the infrastructure, culminating with the Nuraghe. Then you will notice that at the edge of the town there is a platform, designed to give a visual opening to the infrastructure from the town, as well as connecting moments between the users and the residents, who have also used the platform as a continuation of their living space. You then enter the town, where I've pointed out the many public pocket spaces around the town that could be used as steps of the journey that foster a connection with the people inside the town. So you continue your journey around the town, and you arrive close to the church, where it's dinner time. People from the town are celebrating San Pantaleo, the protector of the town. They brought out their dinner tables and are having a dinner on the streets. This is something that happens often with Sardinian towns, giving much importance to community life and convivial moments. Finally, it's the end of the evening, and you enter the church of San Pantaleo, where it's time for another night of incubatio. The infrastructure is designed for a group of 30 visitors, as well as people from the village. The economia becomes the new ritual that runs together with the incubatio. The proposed design aims to subvert the regular scales of daily life in order to accommodate a non-typological way of living. In fact, there are many other ways you can experience the infrastructures and many variables in time, giving freedom of experimentation to its users. If in the subjects investigated, the rituals are there to maintain an infertile daily existence, here the domestic life becomes integrated part of the ritual. The shared daily activities are given a set of infrastructures for experimentation.